What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about what Baldur's Gate does to future RPGs. So this is a conversation I've started to see develop online. I've thought roughly the same thing. Actually, my first thing that I thought when playing Baldur's Gate is this feels like a Dragon Age game that we've never really gotten. And I'm sure there's better comparisons you could make than Dragon Age. It's just, again, more mainstream. I'm more of like the normie in that regard. And I do love Dragon Age quite a bit, even the ones that people don't love as much. I really do enjoy. And I think maybe because of like the fantasy element, right, and all these different classes and races and the politics there, and it reminds me a lot of Dragon Age. But again, I'm sure it could remind people of other games. But it does bring directly into the conversation like what happens to the next Dragon Age. So what I think is two different things, or two different, I'd say, games or companies get affected by this almost immediately. And it is BioWare, so it'd be Dragon Age, and even I would say the next Mass Effect game. And it's also Starfield. So I've talked a lot about Starfield over the last couple weeks, and I'm getting more and more excited for it. And I do wonder how the general audience, because you've seen Baldur's Gate is also like the general audience. There are 800,000 plus people playing the game all at one time. The game has obviously sold many, many millions of copies, right? This is broken out of like this little niche, more kind of like serious role-playing game, and it's gotten into people that probably you would never think would get into a game like this, which I'm one of them as well. Normally this game is too complex, it's too deep, it's too hard for somebody like me, but as we've seen with like the record-breaking numbers, people like that are still giving it a try. So number one, that's incredible, but number two, you're getting people that probably would have avoided it for those reasons. It's too deep. It's too, whatever, maybe the combat or whatever it could be. Maybe they would do Starfield. Maybe they would do the BioWares. And by the way, again, a normie kind of thing. I know there's more games than Starfield. I know there's more games than the BioWare games. I am talking about RPGs in general, because really what Baldur's Gate is doing is honestly unbelievable in terms of the depth of an RPG that it is. So I'm just thinking of, okay, well, BioWare, obviously so many people know it, and Dragon Age and Mass Effect are such big franchises, and Starfield comes out in like 3 weeks, right? 3.5, 4 weeks. So those games are like right there. I guess Dragon Age is the closest one from BioWare. I wonder what that's going to do. I guess Starfield is the test run of that. Now, granted, Starfield is doing different kinds of things. There obviously is like the role-playing element, but it's in a different way, like the gunplay and the resources kind of collections of the planets and making your ship and making an outpost. And the companions are obviously different companions. I guess it's really more of the nitty-gritty. It's more of, do you feel like you're in that universe? Do you feel like every single thing you do has consequences? Now, the honest answer that I have, or I'll just kind of spoil it early, I don't really think any game can kind of compete. It is not even just what I've played, right? Because I've played maybe like 8 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 so far, but I've seen so many clips online of even in like the areas that I was in. And I didn't even know you could do some of the stuff, right? Like handling situations certain ways, even outside of conversations, just like when you're moving around, and that you can do things and you can affect outcomes. Some of it I was playing, like literally I was in that area, and I didn't even know you could do it. So the amount of, I guess, like, I don't want to say customization, I guess just the amount of things that are possible in the game and that would change your game versus my game, based off of class or race or just what you do versus what I do. It's unbelievable how much there is. And I can't see Starfield ever matching it in its life. Now, again, there's different strengths and weaknesses for each. Right now, Baldur's Gate, I don't really know if it has any weaknesses. It really is one of the best games of the year, if not the best game of the year. But Starfield will have maybe some things that can do better, but obviously some RPG elements are going to be worse. Dragon Age, same thing. Any other RPG that are not those two companies or games, same thing as well. I think they'll be fine. I think Starfield, Game Pass, and all that stuff, I think it's going to do just fine. I think, Dragon Age, I don't know. Dragon Age, I do think will overall be fine. I have probably more confidence in it than most, but, obviously it's a little bit more shaky. They're kind of like a prove it kind of situation, but it's going to be really interesting to see what games do because of it, because this is not Divinity Original Sin 2 anymore, or the previous Baldur's Gate games, right? Like, they've clearly been building towards this. And I've watched an okay amount of Divinity Original Sin 2. I think they really had it, locked up. Like they knew what they were doing then. I think people that played it or watched it kind of knew that then, but it never really broke into the mainstream. People played it, but not nearly as many people played it as Baldur's Gate. So now, not only is Baldur's Gate, I think, just like a 10 times better product and just so much more in it than you've ever gotten from them, but also it's broken into the mainstream where people that have never touched even these type of games before are now playing it, right? So this is completely different because it has broken out into the mainstream. And what normally happens when something like that occurs, when Zelda does their whole fused thing, right, in Tears of the Kingdom, and that's all you see online for like 2 months is people like creating weapons and people creating different ways of getting from point A to point B. Other developers now look at their games and say, what do we do? How do we get that in our game? And I really think Baldur's Gate kind of changes everything. Not only will it maybe make future RPGs worse, but it makes them worse because, like, I think the RPG genre now needs to almost it doesn't need to get reinvented. I think Baldur's Gate has, in a sense, reinvented it. I think everybody else just now needs to kind of catch up or figure out just exactly how they did it. You can go more nitty gritty too, right? Like people have also pointed out, even when you're having discussions or like conversations with characters in Baldur's Gate, and I talked about this in my impressions video, there's like genuine like emoting for how many characters there are in that game, for how many branching paths of dialogue that there are, and just all the stuff there is to say. There is so much like personality that comes out of every single character. Their upper body is always moving. Their face looks very realistic. The voice acting is incredibly good. Even something, you know what I mean? So this is a general kind of video. I'm talking more of like a generality, but if you want to get more specific, there's one example right there where can you ever do just the flipping of the camera, right? Just games that just flip and the characters really don't move like almost at all. Can you ever really go back to that? Well, you are going to go back to it. Is it going to be good? Are you going to feel good about it? No. You're going to say, why couldn't it have been done? Like, and again, Baldur's Gate's got so many characters, so many conversations and points that it can go, and yet it managed to do it. So those are the kind of things that I think other games need to figure out very, very quickly, and it sucks because obviously games take literally forever to make. So you have to figure out how to get that stuff in your game like immediately. Whether your game is like 3 years from now, if you're just starting your game, that's probably the best case scenario. But if your game comes out in the next like year or two, you're kind of screwed. You're kind of stuck with what you have, and it again, like, it's gonna probably be fine. You're probably gonna sell. You have other strengths, right? You have other strengths that the game will probably do okay with, but there are going to be, I think, several specific RPG elements in your game that you can always look back. And I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens when a game kind of changes, like when a Red Dead kind of comes out, Red Dead 2, or even Red Dead 1, when these huge games come out that just do something better and pulls off things that other developers quite literally cannot do. You're left like dumbfounded, and everybody else, we're left dumbfounded. The developers, everybody else are thinking, oh my God, all right, we need to kind of copy it and figure out how to make that work in our game. And I'm sure the same thing's happening with Baldur's Gate literally right now. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed, bell icon turned on if you want to support me anywhere else. All my other YouTube links, our Twitter, our Discord, all that stuff is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one.